Episode 2, Our First Date. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have one small favor to ask. If you enjoy our stories, please take a second to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. It's completely free and helps us continue creating more dramatic and emotional stories for you. Also, let us know where you're watching from by leaving your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get started with today's story. The rain arrived just before the final school bell. By the time students poured out of the classrooms, thunder rolled across the gray afternoon sky, sending everyone rushing toward the school gates with backpacks held over their heads. Aiden wasn't in a hurry. He stood quietly beneath the library roof, waiting for the rain to ease while flipping through a history notebook. "You'll miss the bus." A familiar voice interrupted him. Ryan. Still wearing his soccer uniform after practice, he stood a few feet away with a soccer ball tucked under one arm. "I'll walk," Aiden replied without looking up. Ryan shrugged. "Suit yourself?" For years, conversations between them had never lasted more than a few seconds. Not because they hated each other. Because they had spent almost 10 years trying to outdo one another. Best grades. Fastest runner. Music competitions. Science fairs. Even the annual charity race somehow turned into another battle. If Aiden won one trophy, Ryan wanted the next. If Ryan scored the winning goal, Aiden answered by earning first place in another academic contest. Everyone at school knew them. The two brightest students. The two biggest rivals. Neither had ever imagined they could become friends. Another flash of lightning lit up the campus. The rain grew heavier. Ryan glanced toward the dark clouds. "You'd better leave before it gets worse." Aiden finally closed his notebook. "So should you." Neither moved. A second later, the school loudspeakers crackled to life. "Attention, all students. Due to the severe weather, please remain inside the school buildings until further notice." Groans echoed through the hallways. Ryan sighed. "There goes my evening." Aiden couldn't help smiling. "Looks like we're both stuck." Nearly 30 minutes later, the rain still hadn't stopped. Most students gathered in classrooms or the cafeteria. The library had become crowded, so Aiden decided to find somewhere quieter to study. He remembered the old auditorium. It was usually empty after school. As he stepped inside, the enormous room was almost silent. Rows of empty seats stretched into the darkness. Perfect. He sat near the front and opened his notebook again. 5 peaceful minutes passed. Then the door creaked open. Aiden looked up. "Ryan." Ryan stopped in surprise. "I thought nobody came here." "I was about to say the same thing." Ryan laughed awkwardly. "Guess we had the same idea." There were hundreds of empty seats. Yet Ryan chose one only a few rows behind Aiden. Neither spoke again. The only sounds were rain striking the roof and distant thunder outside. It was strange. After years of competing, they had never simply shared the same space in silence. For some reason, it wasn't uncomfortable. Without warning, every light went out. The auditorium plunged into darkness. A few students screamed somewhere outside. Then the entire campus fell silent. "The power's out," Ryan said. "I noticed." Even in the dark, Ryan laughed. "I'm just making conversation." Aiden smiled to himself. "You should practice." Another loud crack of thunder shook the building. Then came a heavy metallic sound. Bang! It echoed from the entrance. Ryan immediately stood. "What was that?" "I don't know." He walked toward the door and reached for the handle. Nothing. He pulled harder. Still nothing. "It's locked." Aiden frowned. "Locked?" Ryan tried again. The door refused to move. Someone must have automatically secured the auditorium during the blackout, unaware anyone was still inside. Ryan knocked firmly. "Hello?" No answer. He knocked again. Only the rain answered. Aiden pulled out his phone. No signal. Ryan checked his. The same. "So?" Ryan leaned against the door with a helpless smile. I guess we're trapped. For the first time in years, neither of them had homework to compete over. No classmates watching. No teachers comparing their scores. No audience expecting another rivalry. Only two boys, alone inside a dark auditorium while the storm raged outside. Aiden slowly sat back down. This might take a while. Ryan glanced at the empty seat beside him. Mind if I sit there? Aiden hesitated for only a moment. Then he nodded. Go ahead. Ryan walked over and sat beside him. Closer than they had ever been before. Mather realized it then. But before the lights came back on, the rivalry that had lasted almost 10 years would begin to disappear. The rain pounded against the auditorium roof so hard that it drowned out almost every other sound. Ryan tried the door one more time. Still locked. He stepped back and let out a long sigh. I guess nobody knows we're in here. Aiden checked his phone again. No signal. No luck? Ryan asked. Aiden shook his head. Nothing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The darkness felt strange at first, but as their eyes adjusted, faint moonlight slipped through the high windows, outlining the empty rows of seats. Ryan laughed quietly. This has to be the weirdest day we've ever had. Aiden looked at him. Probably. Ryan leaned back in his chair. So, if we're trapped together anyway? He hesitated before asking. Can I ask you something? Aiden nodded. What? Ryan smiled. Why did you always look so annoyed whenever you saw me? Aiden blinked. I looked annoyed? Every morning. I thought you couldn't stand me. Aiden stared at him for a second before unexpectedly laughing. I wasn't annoyed. Ryan frowned. You weren't? I was nervous. Ryan looked genuinely confused. Nervous? Aiden rubbed the back of his neck. You always looked so confident. You'd walk into school smiling like you owned the place. Ryan burst out laughing. I was terrified half the time. This time it was Aiden's turn to look surprised. You? Ryan nodded. Especially before exams. You always finished first. I finished first because I panicked. Aiden couldn't help smiling. For years, he had believed Ryan never worried about anything. Apparently, Ryan had been thinking exactly the same thing about him. Ryan shook his head. That's funny. What is? We spent years trying to beat each other. Aiden nodded. And neither of us knew what the other was actually thinking. Minutes passed. The conversation came more easily now. Ryan glanced toward the stage. Do you remember 5th grade? Aiden smiled immediately. The science fair? Ryan groaned dramatically. I spent 3 weeks building that volcano. It exploded. It exploded before the judges arrived. Aiden laughed. I remember. You still won. Because my project actually worked. Ryan pointed at him. See? That's exactly what I mean. Aiden tried to hide another smile. You've never let that go. I never will. For the first time in years, they laughed together instead of at each other. The sound echoed softly through the empty auditorium. Another clap of thunder rolled outside. The lights remained off. Ryan glanced at his watch. Almost 7. We've been here longer than I thought. Aiden looked toward the windows. My parents are probably worried. So are mine. Ryan sighed. They're going to think I got struck by lightning. You'll survive. Ryan grinned. Thanks for the confidence. The silence returned. This one felt different. Comfortable. Ryan looked across the empty stage. You know, I almost quit soccer last year. Aiden turned toward him. You did? Ryan nodded slowly. I tore my ankle during training. The doctor said I might miss the whole season. I thought, maybe I wasn't good enough anymore. Aiden frowned. I never knew that. I didn't tell anyone. Ryan smiled weakly. Everyone expected me to be the strong one. Aiden lowered his eyes. I know that feeling. Ryan looked surprised. You do? When my piano teacher entered me in the regional competition, I couldn't sleep for 3 nights. I kept thinking I'd disappoint everyone. Ryan stared at him. So all this time, you were scared too? Aiden smiled. More often than you think. Ryan laughed softly. I wish we'd talked years ago. Aiden looked toward the dark ceiling. Me too. The words escaped before he realized it. Neither of them spoke afterward. They didn't need to. That simple sentence carried more weight than either expected. A sudden vibration broke the silence. Ryan quickly grabbed his phone. 1 bar of signal. Just for a second. He tried calling his father. The call failed immediately. Then the signal disappeared again. So close. Aiden sighed. Maybe once the storm slows down. Ryan nodded. I hope so. Almost another hour passed. They talked about teachers, homework, favorite movies, the ridiculous races they used to have through the neighborhood. Every news story uncovered another misunderstanding. Ryan had always assumed Aiden thought he was loud and immature. Aiden admitted he had actually admired how easily Ryan made friends. Aiden believed Ryan never took school seriously. Ryan confessed he studied late almost every night because he hated losing. Little by little, the image each of them had built over 10 years quietly fell apart. Not because either had changed. Because they were finally seeing the real person behind the rivalry. Without warning, the emergency lights flickered once. Then again. A low electrical hum spread through the building. They're fixing it, Ryan said. A second later, every light in the auditorium flashed back to life. Both boys instinctively covered their eyes. Ryan stood first and hurried toward the door. He grabbed the handle. Click. This time it turned. The heavy door slowly opened. Before either of them could step outside, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. There they are! The school's supervisor rushed over with 2 security guards behind him. We've been looking everywhere! Ryan looked at the clock above the stage. 8:56 p.m. His eyes widened. We were in here for almost 2 hours? The supervisor folded his arms. Your parents have called the school several times. Aiden and Ryan exchanged a quick glance. Neither had realized how quickly time had passed. As they followed the supervisor toward the school entrance, laughter drifted in from outside. Dozens of students were still waiting under the covered walkway. The moment someone spotted them, a loud voice rang out. They came out together! Heads turned. Phones appeared. Ryan sighed under his breath. This can't be good. Aiden had the exact same feeling. Neither of them knew that by Monday morning the entire school would be talking about only one thing, the night the 2 biggest rivals disappeared together. By Monday morning, everyone seemed to know the story. Or at least, the version they had invented. As Aiden stepped through the school gate, 2 freshmen glanced at him before whispering to each other. That's him. The one who got trapped with Ryan. Aiden sighed. He hadn't even reached the main building yet. The rumors had already spread. The hallway was even worse. Students smiled as he walked past. Some greeted him normally. Others tried far too hard to hide their curiosity. Aiden ignored them and headed straight for his locker. Before he could open it, someone called his name. Morning. Ryan. He looked exactly the same as always, except for the easy smile on his face. For a brief second, Aiden almost smiled back. Then he noticed 2 girls watching from the opposite end of the hallway. One immediately lifted her phone. Aiden hesitated. Morning. Ryan walked over. I was going to ask if you wanted to have lunch together. Aiden's hand tightened around the strap of his backpack. I can't today. Ryan blinked. Oh. I promised the music club I'd help after class. It wasn't true. Ryan gave a small nod. Maybe tomorrow? Maybe. The bell rang. Aiden quickly stepped into the stream of students heading toward their classrooms. He didn't dare look back. Ryan stood in the hallway for a moment. The conversation had lasted less than 30 seconds. Yet something felt different. On Friday night, sitting beside Aiden in the dark auditorium had felt effortless. Now, it was as if an invisible wall had appeared between them again. During lunch, Ethan dropped onto the bench across from Ryan. "You look like we lost the championship." Ryan pushed his food around his tray. "I think I messed something up." Ethan frowned. "With Aiden?" Ryan nodded. "He suddenly seems distant." "What happened?" "I don't know." Ryan thought back to that morning. "He wouldn't even stay and talk." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Maybe you're overthinking it." "Maybe." But Ryan wasn't convinced. Across campus, Aiden sat alone in the library. A history book lay open in front of him. He had been staring at the same page for almost 10 minutes. Not because the lesson was difficult. Because he couldn't stop replaying the conversation with Ryan. Asterisk. "Maybe tomorrow?" Asterisk. The disappointment in Ryan's voice lingered in his mind. Aiden quietly closed the book. "I'm sorry." He whispered the words to himself. He wasn't avoiding Ryan because he regretted their friendship. Quite the opposite. For the first time in years, he actually enjoyed talking to someone at school. But the rumors. Everywhere he went, people whispered. Some laughed. Others watched them as though they were part of a drama. Aiden hated being the center of attention. He hoped that if they spent a few days apart, everyone would eventually lose interest. The next 2 days followed the same pattern. Ryan waved. Aiden waved back. Ryan tried to start a conversation. Aiden answered politely, then excused himself. Each interaction ended a little too quickly. Each goodbye left Ryan more confused than before. Wednesday afternoon, Aiden headed to the music room for piano rehearsal. For nearly an hour, nothing else mattered. The music drowned out every rumor echoing through the hallways. When rehearsal ended, he packed his bag and hurried home before the rain that had started outside grew heavier. Halfway to the school gate, he suddenly stopped. "My notebook." He opened his backpack. English, math, music. His history notebook was missing. Aiden closed his eyes. "I left it in the library." He considered going back. A glance at the dark clouds changed his mind. "I'll get it tomorrow." A little later that afternoon, Ryan stopped by the library to return a novel. As he reached the front desk, something familiar caught his eye. A dark blue notebook rested alone on a study table. He picked it up. A small white label was attached to the cover. "Aiden Carter." Ryan smiled. "You forgot it again." He looked toward the clock. Music rehearsal should be ending soon. "I'll catch him before he leaves." Ryan walked across campus toward the rehearsal building. By the time he arrived, the hallway was empty. A teacher was locking the music room door. "Looking for someone?" she asked. "Yeah." Ryan glanced around. "Aiden." The teacher smiled apologetically. "He left a few minutes ago." Ryan looked at the notebook in his hands. For a second, he thought about taking it home and returning it tomorrow. Instead, he borrowed a yellow sticky note from the teacher's desk. Carefully, he wrote a short message. "You forgot this again. Try not to lose it before next week's test." Ryan. He tucked the note neatly inside the notebook before handing it to the librarian. "Could you give this to him tomorrow?" "Of course. Thank you." Ryan smiled and headed toward the soccer field. He never noticed someone watching from the second-floor corridor. Aiden. He had returned after realizing he'd left his water bottle in the rehearsal room. From upstairs, he had seen Ryan standing outside the library with his notebook. He had also seen Ryan waiting several minutes before finally leaving. Aiden remained still until Ryan disappeared beyond the soccer field. A quiet feeling of guilt settled in his chest. Ryan hadn't given up on him. Not even once. And for the first time since the rumors had started, Aiden wondered if keeping his distance had been a mistake. The next morning, Aiden arrived at the library before classes began. The librarian smiled the moment she saw him. "Looking for this?" She held up the dark blue history notebook. Relief washed across Aiden's face. "I thought I'd lost it." "You almost did." She handed it over. Ryan found it yesterday. Aiden paused. Ryan? The librarian nodded. He came looking for you after music rehearsal. When he couldn't find you, he left a note inside. Aiden slowly opened the notebook. A yellow sticky note slipped into his hand. You forgot this again. Try not to lose it before next week's test. Ryan's smile appeared before he even realized it. He folded the note carefully instead of throwing it away and tucked it into the notebook's inside pocket. For reasons he couldn't explain, he wanted to keep it. That afternoon, Ryan sat alone in the bleachers after soccer practice. Most of the team had already left. Ethan dropped beside him with 2 bottles of water. So? Ryan looked over. So what? Did he get the notebook? Ryan shrugged. I hope so. Ethan studied him for a moment before asking, Are you still planning to keep your distance? Ryan frowned. I'm not the one keeping distance. No. But you're the one refusing to ask him why. Ryan stayed quiet. He had asked himself the same question more than once. Maybe Aiden was busy. Maybe he simply wanted some space. Or maybe. Ryan stopped himself before finishing the thought. He didn't want to believe it. Friday morning, bright red posters appeared across campus. Inter-School Soccer Championships Saturday, 2:00 p.m. Students crowded around the bulletin boards. Ryan's name sat proudly at the top of the starting lineup. As Aiden walked past one of the posters, he slowed. Without thinking, he stopped to read it. You should come. Aiden turned. Ethan stood beside him, carrying his sports bag. What? The match. Ethan nodded toward the poster. He'd be happy to see you. Aiden smiled awkwardly. I don't really watch soccer. I know. Ethan adjusted the strap on his shoulder. But Ryan sat through your entire piano rehearsal. He stayed until the last song. Aiden lowered his eyes. Ethan started walking away before adding one last sentence. And he's still looking for you. Those words stayed with Aiden for the rest of the day. Saturday arrived with clear blue skies. The stadium buzzed with excitement nearly an hour before kickoff. Ryan jogged across the field during warm-ups. Every few minutes he glanced toward the entrance. You've looked over there at least 6 times. Ryan laughed as Ethan stretched beside him. I wasn't counting. I was. Ryan shook his head. I'm just checking if everyone's here. Sure. Ethan grinned. And I'm secretly training to become a referee. Ryan smiled but didn't answer. Both of them knew exactly who he was hoping to see. Across town, Aiden sat at his desk with a math workbook open in front of him. He read the same question 3 times. Not a single number made sense. His eyes drifted toward the clock. 1:35 p.m. The match would start soon. He leaned back in his chair. I said I wasn't going. So why couldn't he concentrate? A memory surfaced. Ryan sitting quietly in the back row during piano rehearsal. Waiting until the performance ended. Clapping before anyone else. Then another memory. The yellow sticky note folded safely inside his notebook. Ryan had shown up every time it mattered. Maybe it was his turn. Without giving himself another chance to change his mind, Aiden grabbed his jacket and hurried out the door. The referee blew the whistle. The championship match began at a blistering pace. Ryan forced himself to focus. He chased every ball, pressed every defender, created chance after chance. But each time play stopped. His eyes wandered toward the stadium entrance. Still nothing. Maybe Aiden really wasn't coming. Ryan took a slow breath and turned back toward the field. At that exact moment, Ethan intercepted a pass. Ryan! The ball rolled perfectly into open space. Ryan sprinted after it. A defender charged toward him. Just before shooting, he instinctively looked up. Near the middle of the stands, someone had just taken a seat. Hair slightly messy from running. Breathing a little harder than everyone else. Aiden. As if sensing Ryan's gaze, Aiden looked down. Their eyes met across the stadium. Then, Aiden smiled. Not a big smile. Just enough to say, I'm here. Something inside Ryan instantly became lighter. He took one touch. Cut inside. Then fired. The ball curled into the top corner of the net. Goal. The stadium exploded. Teammates rushed toward Ryan, cheering as they wrapped him in a group hug. Ryan laughed with them. But before the celebration ended, he glanced back toward the stands. Aiden was on his feet, applauding with a proud smile. For the first time all week. Ryan smiled without forcing it. The final whistle echoed across the stadium. Their school had won the championship. Students rushed onto the field, cheering as players celebrated with teammates, teachers, and parents. Ryan smiled for every photo. Shook every hand. Accepted every congratulation. But his attention stayed fixed on the stands. He searched every row. Aiden was gone. His smile faded. He left. Ethan walked over, tossing Ryan a towel. If you're looking for Aiden. Ryan looked up. Immediately. I saw him heading toward the front gate. Ryan didn't wait another second. Ignoring the celebration behind him, he ran toward the stadium exit. Outside, the campus was still crowded. Groups of students laughed as they replayed the winning goal. Ryan slowed his pace, scanning every face. Then he spotted someone standing beneath the old maple tree near the entrance. Aiden. He held the folded match program in one hand, quietly waiting for the crowd to thin. Ryan walked over, slightly out of breath. You stayed. Aiden looked up and smiled. I thought I'd wait until everyone left. Ryan laughed. I've been looking everywhere for you. I guess you might. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The excitement from the stadium seemed far away. Only the rustling leaves filled the silence. Finally, Aiden broke it. Congratulations. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. Thanks. You played really well. Ryan smiled. I almost didn't. Aiden frowned. What do you mean? Ryan looked at him honestly. I kept looking toward the entrance. Aiden blinked. You were waiting for someone? Ryan nodded. For you. Aiden looked down, suddenly fascinated by the match program in his hands. I'm sorry. Ryan's smile disappeared. Why? I've been avoiding you. Ryan didn't answer immediately. He already knew. He just didn't know why. Aiden took a slow breath. After everyone started talking about us, I panicked. I thought if we stayed apart for a while, the rumors would disappear. Ryan stared at him for a few seconds. Then he laughed softly. Not because it was funny. Because the answer fit Aiden perfectly. So you were trying to protect us? I guess. Aiden smiled awkwardly. I didn't realize I'd only make things worse. Ryan nodded. You did. Aiden looked up at him. I'm really sorry. Ryan shook his head. I was confused. I thought maybe you regretted that night. The blackout. The answer came instantly. Never. Aiden didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. Ryan couldn't stop smiling. Good. A weight both of them had carried all week quietly disappeared. A cool breeze scattered a few maple leaves across the path. One drifted toward Aiden. He caught it without thinking. Ryan laughed. You still catch everything. Aiden smiled. My piano teacher says I have fast hands. I believe it. They laughed together. This time, nothing felt awkward. Ryan looked toward the empty playground nearby. It's strange. What is? We've lived on the same street for years. But today feels like we're meeting for the first time. Aiden thought for a moment. I think we spent too much time trying to beat each other. Ryan nodded. We wasted a lot of time. Maybe. Aiden smiled. But we don't have to keep wasting it. Ryan looked at him. So, no more rivals? Aiden extended his fist. No more rivals. Ryan bumped it gently with his own. Friends? Aiden smiled. Friends. For the first time, either of them felt the need to hide that word. As they started walking toward the school gate, Ryan suddenly stopped. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." Ryan took a quiet breath. "My parents always take me out for dinner after a championship." He smiled sheepishly. "This year, I was wondering if you'd come with me." Aiden pretended to think. Ryan immediately laughed. "That doesn't sound very encouraging." Aiden finally smiled. "I'd love to." Ryan let out the breath he had been holding. "Really? Really?" They continued walking side by side toward the evening sunlight. Neither noticed Ethan watching from the stadium steps. He smiled to himself before quietly shaking his head. "It took you too long enough." Ahead of them, Ryan and Aiden were already discussing where to eat. Neither realized that what began as a simple celebration would become the most unforgettable dinner of their lives. Ryan chose a small family restaurant a few streets from the school. It wasn't expensive. The food was simple, the lights were warm, and the owner greeted nearly every customer by name. "My parents always brought me here after big games," Ryan said as he opened the door. "I figured I'd keep the tradition." Aiden smiled. "I like traditions." A waitress led them to a table beside the window. Outside, the last colors of sunset painted the sky orange and gold. For a moment, neither reached for the menu. They simply looked around, enjoying the quiet after such a noisy afternoon. "So," Ryan said with a grin, "we're officially friends now." Aiden laughed. "I think we became friends before today." "You think so?" "I don't usually keep sticky notes from people I don't like." Ryan blinked. "You kept it?" Instead of answering, Aiden opened his wallet. Folded neatly inside was the small yellow note Ryan had left with the librarian. Ryan stared at it before laughing in disbelief. "I thought you threw it away." "I almost did." Aiden smiled. "But it reminded me that someone waited for me." Ryan looked away for a second, trying to hide the smile spreading across his face. "I'm glad you kept it." Their food arrived a few minutes later. Ryan had grilled chicken. Aiden ordered creamy pasta. The conversation flowed naturally. They talked about elementary school, favorite teachers, embarrassing moments neither had ever admitted before. Ryan confessed he had once practiced penalty kicks alone for an entire summer after missing an important shot. Aiden admitted he had secretly played the same piano piece more than 200 times before performing it in public. "I thought I was the only perfectionist," Ryan said. "You probably still are." "No." Ryan smiled. "I think there are two of us." Both laughed. Halfway through dinner, the waitress returned to refill their drinks. She glanced at the two boys, then smiled. "First date?" Ryan nearly dropped his fork. "We're just friends." Aiden nodded quickly. "Exactly." The waitress laughed. "My mistake." She walked away, still smiling. Ryan covered his face with one hand. "Why does everyone keep saying that?" Aiden stirred his drink, unable to hide a grin. "Maybe because we look happy." Ryan looked at him. "You know, I don't really care what people think anymore." Aiden was quiet for a moment. "Neither do I." And for the first time since the blackout, he realized he truly meant it. When dinner ended, they stepped back onto the quiet street. The evening air was cool. Neither of them seemed eager to head home. They walked slowly through the neighborhood they had known since childhood. At the intersection where they normally went separate ways, Ryan suddenly stopped. "Oh, I almost forgot." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out 2 movie tickets. "A superhero movie comes out next Saturday." He held one ticket toward Aiden. "I bought these a few days ago. I wasn't sure if I'd have the courage to ask." Aiden accepted the ticket with a smile. "So, this is actually our first date." Ryan's eyes widened. "I thought we agreed this wasn't a date." Aiden laughed. "I'm joking." Ryan laughed with him. "For a second, you almost gave me a heart attack." They continued walking until they reached the corner where the road divided. This time, either of them hesitated. "See you Monday?" Ryan asked. Aiden shook his head. Ryan looked confused. What? I'll see you before Monday. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You will? Aiden held up the movie ticket. We have plans. Ryan smiled so widely that he couldn't hide it. You're right. We do. They said goodnight and headed in opposite directions. After a dozen steps, Ryan turned around. Across the quiet street, Aiden had done exactly the same. Their eyes met. This time, neither of them looked away. Both smiled. Then they continued home. The rivalry that had lasted for years had quietly disappeared. In its place was something stronger than either of them had expected. Not love. Not yet. Just trust. And sometimes, that was the best place for every great story to begin.